Hey, what's up guys? Today we keep on building our build mode. We actually make the snapping for our turret. So as you can see over there, these are some tower spawn object, I call them, and it's going to be some predefined area where the player can spawn his towers. So if we move it a little bit closer, you can see that it now snaps to where it should be. And this works all the way around. So guys, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so we left off, we had this kind of behavior here where our preview would just be in front of us, but it did not snap to any object in the scene, any predefined area, simply because we didn't have any predefined area just yet. So we are going to go ahead and do that in this episode. Let's go ahead and create ourselves a new prefab. And well, in prefab, let's create a new object that is going to be used as some kind of marker of where exactly you can place your turret. So I'm going to remove this one, we don't need it anymore, and I'm going to create myself a new plane object. So up here in game object, I'll go here 3D object and we'll choose plane. Now this plane is going to be what I'll be using to determine exactly where are we putting our towers. Okay, so I would like to have predefined area of 1 meter by 1 meter. In order to do that, I am going to have to reduce this to 0.2 on each axis, because a plane, regular plane from Unity, is 5 meter, making it 0.2 gives us a 1 meter block. Okay. Now I am going to go ahead and just assign a material to that so I can see it properly. Any material doesn't matter because we're going to be hiding this during the game. So let's go in artwork, material. I'm going to use the tower material. Okay, so this is what I'll be using as a predefined area where I can spawn my turret, and I will call it tower spawn. Let's just call it something like that. And also what I'll do, I'll also assign a tag to that very object. So up here in tag, I'm going to go and add a new tag. Now let's use the tower spawn tag and go back on your object, choose the tower spawn tag, and here we go, we now have a tag. But on top of that, we're also going to use a layer because we're going to be doing some raycast, or I mean some collision work with that. So not collision, but some physics works with that. So let's go in the layer, and under layer you're going to do add layer, and we're going to add the tower spawn layer. Okay. Again, go back on your object and choose the tower spawn layer. Okay, so we're going to be using the collider of that thing, but it's not really an optimal collider right now. I don't know if you can see it well if I choose it. I know it's really hard to see actually. I'll go ahead and put another color in that. If you can see it, that's not an optimal collider at all. There's way too many vertices on there, and we're not going to be using these at all. So let's go ahead and remove the mesh collider, and let's replace it by a simple box collider. Now it's way more optimal, and that's what we're going to be using for real. Now, if you're thinking the same thing about the mesh renderer, which is this one, it's pretty much not as optimal as a single, a normal plane, but we're not going to be displaying it. We're not going to be rendering this in the end, so it's okay to leave it like that. Okay, so now make sure that everything is on there. Activate your box collider if it's not done. Tower spawn tag, tower spawn a layer, and also give it another tower spawn name, why not? And you're going to go ahead and drag and drop this right inside your game folder. So prefab, game, and it is now a new prefab that you can spawn pretty much at any time. Okay. Oh, also one more thing I'm going to do is I am going to add a icon to that. So up here next to the name, we're going to go here and choose maybe this little green dot. Here you go. Okay. Hit apply once more. And we're going to go ahead and spawn some of these in the map. So we're going to start defining which area you can spawn towers at. So go ahead and drag and drop one of these in your scene, and now try to make it match with your floor. So basically, if you use the control key, if you hold control on your keyboard while you're moving it, it's going to snap to the grid. And now the way you make your level, it should always be snapping to the grid. So I want towers to be spawned on this very edge here. So what I'll do is I'll just hit Control and then move it upward. I'm exactly at the same position as the floor. Now I'll move it just like this. Copy. Oh, actually, before I start making duplicates of these, I am going to create an empty game object. Call it tower spawn list, something like that. Or actually container. Tower spawn container. Put it at the origin of the world. And now I'll make this a children of the tower spawn container. And now I'll freely just duplicate that. So duplicate, again, and again, and again. So you get the picture. You can pretty much put these everywhere you can spawn towers at. Okay, so if you worry about this little glitch here where the graphics are fighting, it's because they're all on the same y-axis. But don't worry about that, because like I said before, these, when we play for real, when we actually launch our game or when we build it, we're gonna disable the mesh renderer, so it's going to look like this. Actually, it's not going to look at all. So you won't be able to see either the mesh renderer or the little green dots. But for the debugging purpose and just while we create our game, I'm going to leave this on. Okay, well now next step is going to make sure that whenever we get close to these things, that our tower snaps to it and it goes exactly in the center, so we get some kind of preview. This is where you can spawn it, and then later on we can add a key that says, okay, now we're ready to spawn. So let's go ahead and do that right now. What we're going to do is we're going to go back inside our build mode script. If you remember, it is on the level manager, and you can just double click here, or you can go in your script folder. Okay, so before we go back inside the build mode script, I actually like to declare myself another class, and we'll do that in the same exact script because it's going to be a really tiny class. So up here, in between the using statement and the build mode, we're going to declare a public class of type tower info. And in there, we'll simply keep track of a public vector3 that we'll call position. This is going to be a property, so capital letter on the P, and also setGet. And just above that, we'll go ahead and declare ourselves a public bool that we're going to call is occupied. SetGet again. And this is pretty much going to be information on these little square objects. So we're gonna have like stuff like, are you occupied right now, and where exactly are you on the map? A little bit later on we'll probably add more, like what level is your turret right now, and that kind of stuff. Okay, so now let's go back inside the build mode. In here we're gonna declare ourselves another list. This one is going to be a private list of tower info, which is what we just declared up here. So we're going to be using our new type right away, and let's call it something like tower spawns with an S. Okay, now in our start statement over here, we're going to go ahead and fill this right away. So we're going to say tower spawn is equal to a new list of tower info. After that, we're going to do get all the tower info in the map. And in order to do that, we'll do a simple for each statement. So for each game object, that I'll call it geo, in game object.find game objects. Don't forget there's an S over there with tag. And we're going to get all the objects in the map that have the tower spawn tag. Just like this. And yep. Now it's going to iterate through every single of those little square object, cyan square object, and we're going to do tower spawn dot add, and we'll add a new tower info, and inside that new tower info we actually say your position is equal to go.transform.position. After that we'll do is occupied is equal to false. So we basically create a new tower info object on the fly using information we get from the game object that has the tag tower spawn. I'll just move this over here. And that will be it for this line. So now whenever we start the game, we should have a list of every single of these, and every single of these have a position and a boolean that says, am I occupied or not? Okay, now let's actually use that list to do something. We're gonna go down here in the move spawn preview. That was our big function of the last episode. Well, guess what? We're actually gonna make it bigger. So, what's going to happen this time is we'll actually use the preview position that we calculate, and we are going to determine, depending on that position that you calculate, so now you have like your object in front of your player, depending on the position of your object, we're gonna say, are you close to a tower info object? So are you close to a tower spawn actually? And if you are close, go ahead and snap and use its position. Now, it's a little bit complicated to explain like that, but what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna go in between the raycast here and the assignment of the position. We're gonna go in between that and declare ourselves a collider array of tower spawn colliders. Okay, and now this collider array is going to equal our physics.overlap sphere, and we're going to cast a sphere right on top of the position the tower should be at. So we'll do preview position, we're going to cast a 1 meter sphere, 1 meter in radius, and then the layer mask is going to be a layer mask dot get mask, and we're getting the tower spawn mask. Alright, now this line over here, this whole line is going to fill the collider array, tower spawn collider, with every single cyan square that is in the 1 meter radius of the position the tower should be at. It's a little bit hard to explain right now, but let's just go ahead and hit play on the game so I can show you exactly what happens. So right now, there should be 4 collider inside of that tower spawn collider array. And that's because it's close enough to the tower preview position. Now if we go over there shouldn't be any of these object inside the tower spawn collider list, because the preview, so this thing over here, is not close enough. And we're actually going to do something with that now. So once we have that information of every single square that is close to us, then we'll do if tower spawn collider dot length is bigger than 0. So if we have at least one of these close to us, then we're going to go ahead and try to find the closest one. So first thing we'll do is a float closest distance square is going to equal vector3 dot square magnitude, and then we'll do preview position minus tower spawn colliders at the index 0, so we're getting the first one in the list, and we're going to say that transform that position. Okay, so we're getting the squared distance in between where the tower should be at and its closest, well, not its closest, but one of the tower spawn collider. And just after that, we'll say int closest index is going to equal 0. Now, if we have multiple tower spawn collider in the array, then if we stop right here, it's always going to be the first one chosen, because we actually set the information to the first one. But just below that, what we'll do is we'll declare a int I is equal to 1. Don't mistake this for 0, this is a 1. As long as 1 is smaller than tower spawn collider, tower spawn colliders dot length, we'll do I++. So we're starting from the index 1 and not the index 0, because we did the operation for index 0 up here. Now, if there is more than a single element in that list, in that array, then it's going to go down here and start evaluating that as well. So we're going to say float d is going to equal the same exact thing. So vector3 square magnitude preview position minus tower span collider at the index I. So right now we are testing against the list. And then we'll do if d is smaller to the closest distance, then we now change which information is going to be chosen at the end. So closest distance square is now equal to d, and the closest index is now equal to I. Okay, so pretty much this whole thing over here is just to get which of the collider is the closest to our object, which of the collider is the closest to where our tower should be positioned at if we didn't have the snapping mechanic. Now after that, we are actually going to say, well, preview position is equal to tower spawn dot find. And this is going to be a little bit complicated if you are a beginner with C#. What we're going to do is an expression. So inside define over here, so remember this is the array that we fill at the start. So this is an array, not an array, a list that contains every single of our little science square. So we're going to say that list dot find, and now we have to find which object is the one we're actually testing against right now. And to do that, inside the find, we'll do a predicate. So we're going to write something amongst the line of t is equal bigger than, then we'll do t dot position. We're actually going to test with the position is equal to tower span collider. So tower span, where's the collider at? Okay, tower span collider at the index closest index dot transform dot position, and then we'll do dot position because we're actually setting this vector 3. So basically it says, okay, so take this list that we filled at the beginning at the start, and then look for an object inside of it that has the same exact position as the tower span collider at the closest index. When you find that object, then go ahead and return me the position of that. Okay, so now we're in game, and let's actually test this out. So, whoop. As you can see, it now snaps to the places, but it's not really fluent. So our snapping mechanic works just fine, but there's a little something here that we could fix to make it more fluent. And that is because preview position is actually not exactly the position we should be getting. And if you remember last episode, what we did is we did a +1 over there, because when we would snap, so let's just remove it. So go ahead and remove that, and we'll go back in game to show you. So hit point .y. When we do snap, it gave us a weird behavior where our turret would not be at the right place, and that is because our pivot point on the turret is not exactly beneath the turret. So when we were doing our testing here, when we were doing our overlap sphere, we were using the preview position +1 in a y. So let's go ahead and remove it up here. So make sure that preview position.y is equal to hit point.y. And we're going to fix our little something down there instead. So now by doing this, we actually do a overlap sphere using the right position, and the snapping mechanic is going to be way more fluent. Okay, now right in between our calculation and the assignment, I'm going to write this in comment and also in caps. We'll call this temporary fix, caps. Okay, and we'll do preview position dot y is +=1. Now we do this because our pivot point for our turrets are in the middle of the turret, which is something we're going to change in a near future. Okay, let's go ahead and try this out once more. So this is cool. It snaps, it snaps, it snaps. Everything is perfect actually. But I might want to increase the range a little bit. So to increase the range at which your player can spawn its object, we're gonna say preview position, and here we'll send it a 2 meter instead of 1 meter. So this is in the physics overlap sphere function. Now let's give it back, try this out. And there we go. So now our player can spawn from 5 meter in front of him if you do the math. and that is because it is 3 meters in front of him, and then it looks, well, it is 3 meters in front of the player with the preview, and then it does an additional 2 meter radius from the overlap sphere. Okay, well, that's pretty much it for this episode, guys. We created the snapping mechanic. In the next one, we're actually going to go ahead and remove the behavior it has right now, where it still shoots even though it's not even spawned yet. So we're going to go ahead and remove that behavior, also remove the collider that he has. And we are going to actually spawn our tower for real. So we're going to have the real code that's going to say, okay, go ahead and instantiate the tower over here. Take your object, your tower info object, and turn it to is occupied true, and all that kind of good stuff. So next episode we're finishing pretty much the whole spawning thing, and we can move on to another mechanic so we can complete our game as fast as possible. Alright, so thanks for watching. If you have any question or comment, please leave them in the comment section below. If you learned something or if you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like and also subscribe for more tutorial. Thanks for watching again, and I will be seeing you in the next episode.